What is up, guys? Welcome back to another Fantasy Premier League video or live stream this time. Obviously, it is Game Week 28 deadline stream time, and this is how my team stands at the moment. Personally, I am undecided on captaincy, but as far as the team goes, I'm not the happiest with that either. But I have a lot of players. Really, the only ones I don't really love are Bamford, Calvert-Lewin. And then Stones, Cancelo, long term are issues, but other than that, I'm generally okay with how the team looks. Salah captaincy just really crossed my mind a lot. I think I'm going to go against it simply because Man City are too good. They've scored a lot of goals. They have that potential to get 5 goals in any game. Even though Fulham, I like how they've defended recently, but I think if Man City score early on, then it could be nice. Salah for captaincy, I think, is a fine option. Wolves have defended pretty well, but if you watch Salah last game, I feel like Liverpool created a little more for him. He had a little bit better service, and he had a lot of chances that may not show up in the stats that I felt like he could have got off the shot, and it would have been a likely goal. And I'm sure his stats weren't bad from that game either. And how's it going, William? It is afternoon here, but good evening to you. I like these times of deadlines, right around noon for me. Very nice indeed. So one thing that I want to talk about is potential triple up on Tottenham with Kane, Son, and Bale. I think that could be a decent option given the lack of really great midfielder options right now. I mean, you could go Aubameyang in terms of expensive guys. Other than that, there's Bruno, there's Salah, and there's De Bruyne. And if for whatever reason you don't want one of those, probably Salah out would be the way to go, even though he has some good fixtures. Son and Bale in isn't that hard to do given they're only 9.5 million. And I feel like Kane, well, he almost has to be in the team at this moment. Hey, Sudanshu, how's it going? So yeah, I like Bale. The one thing that worries me is they have a couple fixtures coming up in Europa League, and he always gets subbed off at like 65 minutes, and that's just, he's playing 2/3 of a game compared to Son and Kane, who simply play more than that. So I'm happy with Son over Bale, but I think when Bale's on the pitch, he's been better than Son. He's got more like big chances per 90 minutes, all these kind of stats. Besides creation, where Son beats him, but Bale's certainly been more of a goal threat than Son. Calvert-Lewin's probably next to go for me this week. I did Ings to Kane and I did Barnes to Reed just to get more money. I thought about Salah to KDB. I could have done a -8. That would have been, let's see, Ings to Kane, which was always going to happen no matter what. That was always going to be in the plans. Ings to Kane, and then I could have went Salah to KDB and Cancelo to another defender. I would have had to get rid of Cancelo or Stones, obviously, and I think I would have had to do Cancelo to like a 5 million player, somewhere around that price. And I didn't really love any of those options. And I'm like, you know what? Cancelo got benched last game. I think I can keep him this week. Fulham, they do have some goal threat on the counterattack, and Man City have been conceding recently, but it's still not the worst matchup for Cancelo and Stones. So I'm okay having them for now. Donna, get down. I'm okay with having them for this one game because the way the rotation works, if we really have to try to guess Pep rotation, you would just assume they start this week, but you could never really be too sure. If they don't, I have Lowton off the bench. That's not terrible, and Dallas has some goal threat as well, but against Chelsea, I would expect nothing from him. Same thing at like Bamford, but Bamford should have scored last game, and that was against West Ham. West Ham have been good defensively recently. Their expected goals against puts them, I think they're still in the top 5. Maybe after Bamford's missed tap-in last game, it hurt their statistics a little bit. But yeah, Bamford getting some good chances against that West Ham defense last match. I was just watching it earlier. So that sort of surprised me. It gave me a little more confidence in Bamford, and of course he should be on penalties as well. So if you have to have him in your lineup, I never think Bamford's a terrible option, but I still think he's most likely to blank this week simply because Chelsea have defended very well recently. I wouldn't say Salah is a must keep because, I mean, going into before I really looked into their last game, I thought that Salah to KDB for a hit for most people, because I was just thinking about like on stream. I'm like, okay, a lot of people are going to wonder about Salah to KDB. Is Salah to KDB for a hit or even not for a hit worth it? I think not for a hit. I think it's much more doable, especially if you only have two City players, which is a very unlikely situation. But if you're having to like get rid of a defender and go to a non-Man City defender and then do Salah to KDB, I'm just not as sure. So they play Fulham this week. I'm worried about that matchup. Like if you're ever going to be worried about Man City with the way they're playing at the moment. I don't think this is going to sound weird, but because I really love looking at fixtures, but I think it's more down to how Man City play on any given day. It's less about the fixture, right? So they scored 4 against Liverpool, 3 against Spurs, 3 against Everton, only 1 against Arsenal, 2 against West Ham, 4 against Wolves, 0 against United, and 5 against Southampton. So I'd say in general they sort of did best in the easiest fixtures. In that run would probably be Southampton first, and West Ham and Everton next, and Liverpool. So in general they did well, but even against Tottenham, if they're on their game, it's 3-0. And that United game they were poor. West Ham good, still 2 goals. So I think as long as they play well, they're gonna get goals. So I think Salah out to KDB can make sense. Man City could have scored more than 5 last game. That could have been. People always say that, they could have had so many more goals. But realistically, if that would have been 6 or 7, that would have been very expected. A lot of the goals they scored were tap-ins, like Gundogan's and KDB's. And then, Torres had an easy chance. Foden could have scored again. And that was just sort of how the game went for Southampton. It was a perfect matchup the way it ended up playing out. So Salah's not a must-keep if you're looking to bring in De Bruyne. He just looks like such a good option right now. So he's not going to be in my team just because I would have to make an extra -8 to do that. And I'm just not ready to do that yet. So, but looking at Man City's fixtures, if we do have to take a look, they do have the blank, which I still am planning on free hitting next week, but now that I've brought in Kane and I have Bamford, so let's see, I have Kane, Bamford, Son, Target, Dallas, Areola. I have 6 right there. I'm probably missing some. So, I could manage it without the free hit, but I'm still leaning towards doing it because I don't really know when I would do it in the future. Maybe Gameweek, the next blank, whenever that is. But yeah, so Man City's fixtures, like, they have the blank, which could hurt them, but then it's Leicester, which Leicester did well against Man City the first time around, and I feel like that was really because of how Brendan Rodgers set the team up. Of course, that's just my opinion. So I would think they would be kind of likely to struggle in that game, if any. But then after that, Leeds and Villa and Crystal Palace are very nice. So I think, a lot of people are sort of hoping that we can get to the Gameweek 31 and then bring in KDB. And I think that makes enough sense if you agree that Salah is a good captaincy option this week, which I think he is. You can never go too wrong with Salah. He hasn't been great recently. But, Liverpool haven't created much recently, and I feel like they looked a little better last game, and Salah had chances where he could have scored. If Salah scores the one where he's sort of in the 6-yard box with the goalkeeper there, and it's sort of like the ball's loose, and he's like struggling to get on the end of it, I don't think anybody's surprised if that ends up in the back of the net. And there was a couple more chances where Liverpool were actually attacking very well, and just putting balls into the box that didn't quite, they get the sort of byline ground crosses in, like the Jordi Alba style, and Robertson does them all the time. And Mane had the miss, and balls that could have easily fell to Salah just didn't. And then Salah scores midweek. So I think he had situations where he could have scored, and he finally scored for the first time in a while midweek. I think it looks pretty decent for him. And he played 90 minutes, but he doesn't play until Monday, so I think he should be fine. Of course, rotation's always a potential with Man City, and that's my one worry about captaining Gundogan. So they played March 10th, and they play again March 13th. So maybe that does. I'm still undecided on captaincy. I mean, maybe I should go Salah or Kane. Kane's a decent option as well. Bruno, Son. I think they're all fine options, to be completely honest. So do Spurs, City, Fulham, and Southampton breaking in Game Week 33 affect our decision to triple up Spurs? No chips left. I mean, we should at least take it into consideration, of course. Let's see. Spurs, City, Fulham, Southampton. So Southampton shouldn't be an issue for most people. Fulham isn't really going to be an issue. Like you most likely only have Areola, maybe Lookman, and then you could just bench them that week. And then as long as you don't have Spurs or City players, it shouldn't be an issue. But tripling up on Spurs, I mean that comes into consideration. But we have to look at are these fixtures good enough to where we think we can get points, and then the fixtures right after that are pretty good. Like Sheffield United, Leeds right after the blank is nice. So it's going to be a tough situation. If you have them, you're not going to want to sell them, but it still could work out kind of well. I'm still not totally convinced by them enough to say the triple up is like impregnable in any way. It's they did well against Burnley and Crystal Palace. Realistically, those are pretty two good fixtures, and they scored 4 in each, which is very nice that they can take advantage of great fixtures, but. Only one against Fulham. That's about what you would expect, to be honest, at this point. So I think teams that really sit deep, and if they don't get an early goal, it's sort of the same as usual with Spurs, where 1 or 2-0 is what I would expect. And we could see that on Sunday against Arsenal. I think that's kind of likely. Arsenal could become the defensive team. So maybe not bringing him in this week is necessary. And then at that point, I mean, we'll have to reassess, but I think Son and Kane or Bale and Kane was the way to go. I think Kane, you almost have to have him, and you probably want one of the other midfielders. But I mean, you're right. If that's your issue, and you know that you're not really going to want to deal with it, then yeah, maybe I would avoid the triple up, especially considering that you probably want the 3 Spurs players, not the 3 Spurs, the 3 City players at this time. Maybe only 2 actually. Gundogan, KDB, you want those in my opinion. As far as Cancelo and Stones, I mean, they're not terrible, of course, but with the rotation, I'm looking to sell soon. I'm not exactly sure my plans for the future, but personally, I will say that I don't really want them in my team that much longer. I could even sell, I may free hit this week, but for Game Week 30, selling Cancelo or Stones is kind of easy. Let's look at some fixtures in Game Week 30. Who could we sell for? I mean, Chelsea don't blank in 33. They play West Brom Game Week 30. I think they may have some decent fixtures after that. I'm not sure. Well, they start off with West Brom and Crystal Palace, and then Brighton. So that almost makes it worth it right there, that run of 3. And then not Sheffield United. And then West Ham. I mean, that's not great, but I think a Chelsea defender, if we can trust anybody, may be the way to go instead of Cancelo or Stones. Not sure who that Chelsea defender would be, though. So Chelsea have no options that I can use the word trust to describe. That's for sure. Because of rotation. I can't do Salah to Jota at the moment. Again, I think Salah is... I don't know. If I was to do that far of a downgrade... Well, first of all, if you don't have Gundogan, I would get Gundogan over Jota, but I'm sure most people do. I don't know. I guess I'm not a huge fan of Jota. What other cheap midfielders are there that we could downgrade Salah to? I was looking at one the other day, and I'm like, you know what? I could do that. But I think for this week, I'm happy to keep Salah, especially like if you're looking at a hit or something. I think the main way to get rid of him would to be, for a Spurs player or a Man City player. Other than that, I'm not too sold on selling him just yet, especially after his goal midweek. I mean, longer term, there's Saka. That's who I was thinking about. But I was going to say there's always Rafinha once the fixtures get good again. And I guess the same for Saka. You're going to have to wait till Game Week 31. Let's see if that works well for Liverpool's fixtures. I know they have some decent ones coming up. Also, Saka plays in the blank. But I quite like Saka. I think he could have got some easy returns last game against Arsenal. I would still take him over Aubameyang. That price difference for what you're getting is simply... It makes it Saka all day for me. in 31, I mean, you're not really going to want to sell Salah. You could, I know he hasn't been great, but if he just gets one return soon, like let's say he just gets a random goal against Wolves and he gets an assist against Arsenal, all of a sudden people are going to look at him as, oh, we have to get him in, right? If he just scored one of those chances last game, which we know he can do, we know he can just get one chance and score it. All of a sudden we're looking at, oh, this guy's getting points and he's got these great fixtures till the end of the season, really. So the issue is that Liverpool won't have much to play for. They're not good. All these criticisms. I mean, the defense they put out last game was just embarrassing. I know they were probably resting for the Champions League or whatever, but I forgot who they played that week, or that game. But geez, that they had Nico Williams, the other Williams, and another young center back. It was just kind of garbage. I've considered Kane. He was initially my captain, Adam. But Arsenal defensively, I just don't know how that game is going to go, to be honest. Arsenal have been pretty decent defensively, and Spurs killed Crystal Palace, Spurs killed Burnley. Is it that impressive? I mean, it's good to know that in good matchups they can score 4, and I know Kane's record against Arsenal is really good, and I've captained him before against Arsenal. I like the matchup. But I still think, I mean, we're talking about Man City and Gundogan here, a guy who gets into the box so much. Man City are almost going to win the game, right? I know Fulham had defended well, but as I mentioned earlier, Man City, in my opinion, are just too good. So we got Gundogan, a very likely candidate for another tap-in or easy goal this week, and probably a higher probability of having the game go out of reach with a 3-0 or that kind of scoreline. The one issue I have is I don't think Fulham are going to be like Southampton once they get down by that much. I think they'll still just try to keep it respectable, and they won't go all out attack. Fulham just, I don't know, sometimes they do that. When was the last time somebody scored 3 against Fulham? It's been since Gameweek 9, and that was yeah. Everton scored 3 against them Gameweek 9, and Leeds scored 4 against them. Yeah. So, and then Arsenal scored 3 against them. Early on in the season, it was a different Fulham. But since then, they have not conceded 3 goals in a very long time. Against Man City, they conceded 2. So, pretty close, I would say. That's probably the one thing that's why I'm hesitant with Gundogan. So, it's a battle of the upside versus, Man City's high upside versus Fulham killing all high upside of other teams. Which one's going to win? In general, I would put the money on Man City, given how good they've been, and it's still Fulham. But Areola and that defense has been well. Anderson's played very well for Fulham. A lot of their defenders have simply played pretty well. I think Bruno captain is also a decent option. I have to say that. So, Salah or Kane captain. If I had to choose between the two, you know what? We'll have to go to understat.com for this. Let's talk about captaincy because it's a big decision. Start Wan-Bissaka or Bamford. I would start Bamford. I don't think I have to think too much about that. I mean, I could see either way. I wouldn't doubt you, or I wouldn't criticize you for going either way there, because I could see the United clean sheet, but West Ham's they've been pretty good this season. And Bamford against Chelsea. I would expect blanks from both, to be honest, but Bamford on penalties, you got to go with the guy that could, if he scores 2 against Chelsea, it's something that's possible, but you would feel very bad. Wan-Bissaka doesn't have the same upside, that's for sure. So let's take a look at the fixtures first of all. So we're talking about, you know what? Let's go ahead and put the players in. Alonso or Azpilicueta. I don't even know. I'm like, oh, they're all rotation risks. They're just out of my mind. I'm leaning towards neither at the moment. If I had to go Chelsea defenders, that's the thing. Even though I said I like them, I don't know who I would go for. Let's look at Azpilicueta. Has he been starting regularly? I think you have to go Azpilicueta, to be honest. I know Alonso's upside, and trust me, I love Alonso, but I could never buy a team that looks like this, or a player that with that kind of minutes. I would go Azpilicueta every time. Saka or Rafinha start one. Saka or Rafinha Bamford. Oof. For me, it's between Saka or Bamford. Who do Arsenal? I think I would go Bamford still. I mean, I could see either way. I don't think I would go Rafinha. I think Bamford or Saka is the way to go. But yeah, let's talk about captaincy. So let's see. Well, Salah. Let's add De Bruyne, of course. And I'll try to give a ranking of who I would captain and where. Gundogan. Son. Well, let's go Bale. Let's throw Bale in there. Let's go Kane. And Heung-min Son. Who else is there? I feel like that's basically it, to be honest. Oh, Bruno against West Ham. I mean, it's kind of a tough matchup. I still get the feeling that he'll get one return for whatever reason. But so over the course of the season, I mean, Kane expected goals per 90 minutes. He's the king of that. But Salah is right behind him. And Kane has a higher non-penalty XG per 90 minutes by a decent amount. Bale beats De Bruyne on this matter, and obviously that's a smaller sample size. But yeah, Son is the lowest over the course of the season for XG. But for goals, Son is fourth. He beats. Well, let's go to XG. Yeah, goals. I mean, but he's played a lot more minutes than a lot of these guys, so. Son really with the worst goal threat. He's not really in my consideration. I would always go Kane over Son, and I've said that all season with regards of captaincy. Expected assists per 90 minutes, we got KDB and Bruno up at the top with Son. Salah is the lowest, along with Gundogan. It's surprising how Gundogan doesn't really have that much assist potential in general. But let's go more recently. Let's look at the last 5 games. It's 6 for the City players. And let's go XG per 90 minutes. And we can see Gareth Bale with, as I mentioned earlier, he gets more chances when he's on the field. But this is XG per 90 minutes. He gets subbed off, 60 minutes every game. So if we go to XG, we can see that all of a sudden Bale drops down to below Gundogan and Kane. Again, Kane, the clear winner of any of the Spurs guys. But we can see here that Son does have a lot of creativity, so I'm happy to have him. His numbers recently are still pretty good when you factor in the expected assists. But let's go back to XG. We can see Kane beats Gundogan outright with the expected goals. He has played a little more minutes, even though Gundogan's played the extra game. But recently, Bale, Kane, Gundogan, Salah, De Bruyne, then Bruno, then Son in terms of goal threat. Actual shots they got off. And there's a big difference. You have to take into consideration, like, what scenarios are these players getting in. In my opinion, Gundogan gets in a lot of good positions where the ball could fall to him at any time. And the same could be said for Kane and Salah, I feel like. And De Bruyne... I don't know. I don't think he has the same sort of quality, but of course he's more creative than all these guys, and the same could be said for Bruno. I think these numbers simply show that Bruno, he doesn't really match up as of recently. His non-penalty expected goals per 90 minutes over the past 5 matches is 0.04. That's like, that's probably like Craig Dawson level. It's not great, but penalties are a big deal, and there's no way around that. So Bruno, still a decent enough option. I could never go for him personally, but I'm happy to have him. That is for sure. Yeah, I think Kane will start. I'm not too worried about his yellow flag. I'm not worried about that because people that watched the game said it looked like a precaution. Mourinho said that he should be fine. I'm not too worried about it, to be honest. I don't know, man. I would pretend as if it's not even a thing. Kane, well, I took a hit for Kane, nerd. So I guess he is. I think he is because I just want to get him on my team right away. He's got a great record against Arsenal. I think he's one of the best captaincy options. When I initially brought him in for a hit, I was planning on captaining him. But now, I don't know. I have my doubts because of Arsenal. But yeah, with that said, the numbers recently, they point to Bale and Kane. And of course, Gundogan's pretty much always up there. But I would say Bale and Kane really steal the show, and that's not surprising. But Salah, with his complete lack of returns, only 1 goal and 0 assists, still beats KDB, Bruno, and Son as far as expected goals per 90 minutes goes. So, of course, KDB kills Salah with creativity. So overall, you would expect, most people would say that KDB is simply a better option at the moment. But the fixture, one thing I am worried about with Bruyne if I owned him, I think he's going to be the most popular captaincy option. But we've seen at times in the past. I picture a team like Fulham. Teams sit deep against Man City. We know this. But Fulham, that's kind of what they do. And they're going to be good at it. And they're going to go all out with it. And I think in a lot of these scenarios, we see KDB sort of drop super deep so that he can put in these deep crosses, especially from the right flank, almost the right touchline at times. And I think when he does that, we don't know when he'll do that for sure, but I think this is the kind of game where that could happen. And that would mean Gundogan sort of playing in his best role right at the top of the box, drifting in to the 6, for the cross a lot of times as he feels like. And whenever this happens, De Bruyne is still a decent option. He'll still get some shots, of course, but his goal threat in general is severely harmed. So that's my hope as a non-KDB owner, but of course, he's still a great option. And that's sort of based on tactical reasoning that we don't know will happen for sure, but it's a possibility, and I've seen it in the past. That's probably the whole first half of the season. That's why I didn't get KDB, because he had a tendency in certain matchups to take up positions that didn't give him much goal threat, and that's bad from an FPL perspective. And he didn't score any open play goals until last week, so that's why I've avoided him in general. But of course, that could always change. So expected goals against. Let's look over the course of the season first. It's important to look at the big picture. Let's look at Arsenal. Arsenal have been very good. 4th best over the course of the season. And that's number one thing, keeping it simple, that puts me off the Tottenham guys. Whereas we have Wolves here, which are, in the 10 worst teams. And that's who Salah plays, of course. And where's West Ham at? West Ham is right up here with Arsenal, basically 2 spots behind in terms of expected goals against. Not looking great for Bruno. And who are our other options that we're looking at? I would say in general, those are the fixtures that we're really looking at here. So, I would still say, I know Wolves have sort of improved things recently, but we'll see. But as far as over the course of the season goes, Salah certainly has the best fixture. Let's go since February 10th again, and we'll see if anything's changed past 5 or 6 games. Wait, did I do? Let's go February 10th. So expected goals against, Sheffield United have been very, very bad recently. Only 5 games, less than most of these teams, but first in expected goals against recently. Southampton and Everton right after them. And then Wolves are actually right here, and they've played only 5 games, and they're only 0.08 expected goals against behind Everton. So Wolves, based on averages, I would say they've been second worst over the past, since February 10th. Let's take a look at their fixtures. How poor have their fixtures been? Because that's always important. They played Aston Villa last week without Grealish. That's not amazingly tough. They had a Man City game in there, so that makes a huge difference. But they did play Newcastle, Leeds, and Southampton as well. So some very easy fixtures there. And they did concede 4 to Man City. So now, of course, the next point in line is, in order to look at how tough this Wolves game actually is. So 3.26 of that is against Man City. 3.26 of their recent 9.5 expected goals against came against Man City. So if we take that game out of consideration, that's 4 matches with let's take a look. What is it? 3.26. That's 4 matches with 6.25 or 6.24. So that's still a lot. That's 1.5 goals a game at least, somewhere around there. That's pretty high in general, I would say. So I still think the Wolves fixture is good. And again, those other games were against in the past 5 matchups that Wolves have played. Their other games were against Aston Villa, Newcastle, Leeds, and Southampton. Those are easy matchups where they conceded a lot of chances. So based on that, I think Salah it's really a differential captaincy option at this point. I think Salah looks good, and I may just have to give it to him. That may have just convinced me now. I was kind of impressed by what I saw when I watched the 10-minute recap of the game, and that adds a little bit more excitement. We could see Fulham recently. This is in 6 games, more than a lot of these teams. Based on this, they've defended better than Arsenal recently in terms of expected goals against. Not only have they only conceded 4.84 expected goals against, but they've only conceded 2 of those. And that's been a theme for them all season with how well Areola has played. And I don't know, maybe their defenders block shots or whatever could possibly factor into this. Maybe just poor finishing, maybe getting lucky. But still, Fulham only conceded 2 in the past 6. Beating their expected goals against yet again. Arsenal, 4.5 in the past 4. That's less games, but only slightly less expected goals against. So Fulham better than Arsenal recently, I would say. Makes Kane look a little bit better than Gundogan based on the fixtures, and De Bruyne as well. West Ham, very, very good recently. Less than 1 expected goal per game. And who have West Ham played? Didn't they have to play Man City in that time as well? So it's looking pretty bad for Bruno, especially considering his numbers are probably the worst of the bunch. Looking at West Ham's recent fixtures, they had to play Tottenham, Man City, Leeds, Sheffield United. So considering Man City's in there, I would say that's very good. Other than that, it's kind of easy. But so this is, in terms of the fixture, I think Wolves is the easiest fixture. Now, Wolves have actually, let me go back to this real quick. Wolves have only conceded 6 goals, but they've given up 9.5 expected goals against. Based on previous statistics I've seen of Rui Patricio in terms of like save percentages and expected goals prevented, stuff like that, Patricio is generally one of the worst in the league in terms of these sort of statistics. So given the fact that we're basing this on statistics now, I would say this is a fluke. He's not like an Areola or a Martinez who really outperforms in this category. I think the fact that they've only conceded 6 in these 9.5 expected goals against, I think this is a fluke. So I think Salah is a great option in this regard for this week. With that said, if I have to rank captains, I still think there's something about the Man City quality that make them a reliable captaincy option. So it's going to be hard for me to really pick a top spot. I think and Tottenham have been very good recently too. So it's tough. I think Bruno is not a captaincy option in comparison, of course, given we're sort of like looking into this a lot. Like anything can happen in the game, of course. So if it's wrong, it's wrong. If it turns out to be wrong, but because we know Bruno can always get 2 penalties. But I think Bruno, Son, I would personally not go for Bruno, Son, or Bale if you have Kane, Gundogan, Salah, and De Bruyne. I think Kane, Gundogan, Salah, and De Bruyne are the best options. Ranking those is tough. Gundogan and KDB, to be perfectly honest, KDB maybe barely beats Gundogan, but they're still very close. Don't get caught up on the prices. Gundogan is right up there with him. It's just so tough to look at Salah recently and say that he's the best choice. let's take a look at Wolves again. Have they had a huge away and home difference? They've played a lot of away games recently. If that possibly makes a difference, I don't know. But they've only played one home game recently, and when they did, they kept a clean sheet. So maybe that's a factor we're not considering here. But they are home to Liverpool. I don't know if that's a big deal or not. Let's take a look at Liverpool's recent away fixtures. Well, they haven't had many either, but they did win 2-0 to Sheffield United last time. But that's Sheffield United. I would sort of expect that. But they lost to Leicester before that. They beat West Ham. They beat Tottenham. You know, I think for me, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I'm gonna just go ahead and get this done with. Salah, number one captaincy option. I don't even know how you split the rest. I think Gundogan, then or KDB, then Gundogan, then Kane. But that's all very close. And really, it's all close. But I think I've decided Salah captaincy is going to be what I'm going to do. And Gundogan vice captain, I'm pretty happy with. I don't think Salah's going to be rotated. There's always the risk of that. But you could say the same for Gundogan as well. In fact, who should I put as my vice captain? I'll leave it on Gundogan. I think he's reasonably safe, I would say. Actually, I'll go Kane instead. I mean, you can't be any safer than that. So Salah captain, I think that's going to be the decision I make. Let's see. We'll see what happens. So yeah, for me, Salah over Kane. Yeah, and that's all that ranking system. So, bench one of Konza, Shaw, or Rudiger. Let me look at the fixtures. So right away, Shaw has the attacking threat, obviously. That's been pretty decent. Konza is the one I'm leaning towards right away. Let me look at Chelsea. Chelsea play Leeds. As good as Shaw has been, I think you bench him. I love the Newcastle and the Leeds matchup. The thing is, Rudiger, we don't know if he's going to play. I don't think he'll come off the bench. So I think you'll get 90 or 0 from Rudiger. I think Konza has a little more goal threat than Rudiger, but I don't know if that should really be a huge decision maker. I think I'm actually going to say Konza, though. Newcastle is probably a worse or a better matchup for defenders than Leeds is. I don't think you could go wrong with either one, though, Rudiger or Konza. If I had to pick, I would say Konza, but use your best judgment and go for one. Veltman, Reguilon, or Bamford for starters. Reguilon's not terrible. You know, I'm not a fan of Reguilon because of rotation, but if you have him, you don't really have to worry about a benching that much. How much we have? 20 minutes until deadline. Veltman. I know Veltman has a good matchup. A lot of people looking at Brighton defenders. I just don't trust Brighton that much. I think Adams looked good against Man City last game. I think, even with his goal that he scored that was offside, I think he should have some confidence after that. So I'm not huge on the Brighton defenders, to be honest. Longer term, they're probably pretty decent. And Veltman has had some attacking potential. But I think you still go Bamford here. With Veltman and Reguilon not having... I don't know. I mean, Veltman's got a great matchup. But I still think I would go Bamford. I trust Bamford too much for all these defenders playing over him. Well, Rafinha and Bamford is a tough one. Rafinha does create a lot of chances, but Bamford, there's always going to be some point in the game, in general, where Bamford gets like a tap-in chance, or not a tap-in chance, but a 1v1 or something. Now, he'll choke it a lot of times, but we've also seen games where he finishes outrageous things, so we don't know what we're going to get for him. I think his upside is higher than Rafinha's, to be honest. Let's take a look at both of them recently. Since February 10th is the date I have in, and we can see Bamford has a higher XG per 90 minutes, and Rafinha, of course, has a very high expected assists per 90 minutes. So Rafinha's overall expected goal involvement is definitely higher. it's, I guess the issue is we don't know how Leeds are going to play. I still think Bamford, I don't know why, I just trust Bamford over Rafinha in general. Both of them have underperformed in both statistics recently. Rafinha's created a lot of chances that haven't been scored. Maybe Rafinha is the better option over Bamford, but I'm happy with my current midfield in general. We have Gundogan, Son, Bruno, Salah, then obviously a bench player. So if that bench player was Rafinha, would I start him over Bamford? I still can't say I would. Bamford's still most likely on penalties. I keep reverting back to that. But Rafinha, I don't know. I've never been too into him, I suppose. With a tough matchup, you would assume Bamford's going to be the one sort of that stays forward the most. Leeds, of course, will be looking for the counter, but and maybe even pressing occasionally. But I'm worried that if I would have Rafinha, I would be worried that he would have to track back on some wing backs or, have some defensive duties, given that it's a tough fixture this week. But they're both fine. Rafinha in the future is definitely someone I'm interested in. I'm sort of just holding on to Bamford for the moment, but maybe for 29 and 30, but certainly after these good fixtures, there's a amazing chance that Rafinha ends up in my team. Like, for those fixtures, that's almost an easy Rafinha transfer in somehow. Maybe Gundogan out at that point, maybe even Bruno out, but Rafinha for those fixtures, having the Rafinha and Bamford double up for the final 4 game weeks of the season or so, 4 or 5, is gonna be very nice. It should be, when teams. Let's look at the standings. When teams are in relegation battles, in general, statistically speaking, I remember looking this up last season. They concede less goals. When they're in, just think of it like this: when you really, really are trying not to lose or trying to win or whatever, the easiest way that impacts the game is that you're going to put in a lot of defensive effort, right? For your team, you just really care about the team, you want to win, all that kind of stuff. Whenever that's the environment, they're going to work harder defensively, and we're going to see improvement. Doesn't mean they'll be great, but we'll see improvement compared to if they're mid-table into the season, nothing really to play for. There's just there's less of that extrinsic motivation. Like, you still want to play well, but especially for teams that for whatever reason are extrinsically motivated by results, rewards, that kind of thing. People in this zone, they can, they start defending well. And we see that teams, once they've already been relegated, then all of a sudden the complete opposite happens. They actually, in general, they start scoring a little more goals than they had previously. There's less pressure on people to finish, especially a lot of these relegation level teams have players that, maybe that's something they struggle with. But also they put in less defensive effort because at that point it doesn't really matter. But the attackers probably play with more freedom, that sort of thing. But statistically, there's an increase in once a team is relegated, they concede a little more, but they also score a little more. So something worth keeping in mind. And that's also because, like, over the course of the season, these teams have been defending for their lives, just trying to get point by point. And then once they're relegated, well, they throw some younger players in there, maybe some more creative players, and see what happens in some cases. So, yeah, that's something to pay attention to as the season goes on. We'll see some of those impacts, with these teams fighting to not be relegated, like Fulham right now. Maybe they, against Man City, it's kind of like, it doesn't really matter. Like, if Man City are on their game, nothing matters because they'll just outqualify you to death. But that's something to pay attention. I always pay attention to. I feel like those basic rules have got me green arrows in the past, to be honest. I saw that you went with development over target in the end, Blues. And, I can't blame you. I guess I just like the Villa defense a lot. Martinez in goal makes me feel safe, It's all about how you feel on the inside. Putting a Brighton defender in your team, you can't feel good about that, right? Just look at them. Brighton defenders are boring. Nobody likes them. Would you put Lloris or Pope in the goal this game week? I would prefer Pope, I think. Tottenham have been decent at controlling the game, but if I had to choose, I think Pope's sort of Mr. Reliable in that regard. But Everton, with the way they've played recently, they haven't impressed me too much. No goals against Chelsea. They were decent against Southampton, but it was only temporarily. They had stretch there where it was just Southampton was dominating the game. I think Burnley could cause them some problems. I think if they go back to Calvert-Lewin in the middle, like in a 4-2-3-1 or whatever the formation is, if they play a central striker with Calvert-Lewin, then maybe he'll actually be a decent option this week. It's a good enough fixture where I'm happy to keep him, but I'm fully expecting a blank from Calvert-Lewin. He doesn't have penalties or anything like that, so. How many players for blank game week is considered safe? Well, I mean, it's a spectrum. The more you have, the safer it gets. I would say, given these teams, like let's say you have no chips left, a lot of people have Villa players. A lot of people have Spurs players. Some Arsenal. A lot of people have West Ham players. A lot of people have Leeds players. Given these teams, I think you probably want, the minimum has to be 8. You're probably going to want 9, 10, 11 because, triple Leeds, triple Villa, triple Spurs is something that is not out of the picture. And then, people looking at Brighton defenders. There's Areola. I think it's easy to sort of get at least 9 or 10 out of these guys, but anything less than that, you're probably going to be seeing a red arrow. With that said, I mean, Leeds they do have some tough fixtures, so maybe you want to avoid them, but a lot of people have Bamford, a lot of people have Rafinha. Well, maybe not Rafinha, but Bamford, 51% owned. Dallas, how much? 21% owned. I mean, that's a decent amount of the game right there. They have those two. Yeah, good luck, Harbor Boy. Yeah, I'm already through. I think mathematically, I'm through in the Elite FPL Cup. At least that's what whoever it was tweeted out. They said that. So yeah, I mean, for your case, hopefully you beat me. It doesn't really bother me either way. Salah captain over Kane. I did a whole thing about it earlier in the stream. Probably, I don't know, 8 minutes ago or so. So if you want to check it out, but basically it comes down to the fact that Wolves have been a pretty good matchup to face recently, and I was sort of impressed by Salah last game in the eye test, and he scores midweek. I think things shaping up kind of nicely for him. Of course, I don't trust it completely, but Arsenal have also they've been better defense. Like I know Kane has a great record against Arsenal, and I still like him. I brought him in for a -4 this week, but Arsenal are a better defensive team now than they have been in the past. So, yeah, that's kind of why. Start Shaw or Burn. Let's see. 13 minutes till the deadline, by the way. Shaw or Burn. I think you go Burn. I mean, it's the better fixture. In general, that's what I would say with the defender. The one that has the better fixture, as long as you don't have like a terrible defender in your team. But as much as like I just don't get Brighton players that much, but against Southampton you kind of have to play him. I feel like I do see West Ham scoring against Man United, but Shaw has more attacking threat. That has to be said. But I would go Burn. A question from 10 minutes earlier. Should I get Mount or Gundogan? I would still go Gundogan. I mean, if you have KDB plans and Gundogan hurts those, then maybe that changes things. But Mount, wait, before I spread false information, wasn't Mount benched last week? Mount being benched last week, because I was considering him as an option. I liked him. But once I saw that, yeah, he played 24 minutes. I mean, it's probably just rest. He's played a lot, right? But still, that puts me off enough. Like this week, if he starts against Leeds, that's fantastic. But Gundogan, like, as individuals, Mount and Gundogan gets in more goal-scoring positions, and his statistics have been just like, and he's cheaper as well. Like, Gundogan's still kind of unbeatable with regards to value and 1v1 matchups. Like, oh, this guy versus this guy. The only thing that could outplay Gundogan is if for whatever reason you have two defenders and then you're looking at potential De Bruyne. But Gundogan beats him for sure. And Man City defenders are kind of looking like worse options after every game. That's for sure. So yeah, Salah captaincy is it's going to be an interesting one. Got to wait till Monday to see what happens. I don't know. I was initially set on Kane, then I switched to Gundogan, now I switched to Salah. It's statistics based, so whenever I do that, it'll just end up being incorrect, but we'll see what happens. I was initially like, after last week, it was so poor. I was like, oh, let me just transfer Salah out for a -4, bring in KDB. But decided against that. I mean, look at this team. It's terrible. Gameweek rank of over 5 million. Target on the bench. Ariel on the bench didn't matter, but at least I captained Gundogan. Otherwise, that would have been horrendous. But no Kane really hurt me, so I brought him in for a -4. I mean, I just always love Kane as an FPL option. I mean, I'm not even really expecting a green arrow this week either. I took the -4. I've got Bamford and Calvert-Lewin in there that I don't expect much from, and who knows. Kind of some tough matchups, to be honest, but we'll see what happens. One thing I'm worried about is Cancelo and Stones getting benched. Like, that's just nothing much you can do about that. But pretty soon they have to go. DCL or Watkins. I'm going to have to say Watkins. Matchup's better. I know they don't have Grealish and it's hurt Watkins a lot, but Watkins still hit the crossbar last game, and that's a better strike than we've seen from Calvert-Lewin in probably the past 3 matches. Watkins is simply much better than Calvert-Lewin in my opinion as an FPL option right now. So, yeah, Watkins all day for me. Yeah, Ahmed. I mean, I like the double Chelsea defense if we can find a way to make it work. Maybe Azpilicueta, the way in is the way to go because he's a little bit more nailed on. But I like it if we can just somehow find a way to make it work. That's something I want to do as well. But Man City defense out is soon. It's probably the way to go because of all the rotation, really. But who do we bring in? That's the question. Azpilicueta, probably pretty reliable. Probably not many attacking returns. Kind of expensive, but given these fixtures coming up soon, bring him in Game Week 30, maybe even 28. Maybe right away. But West Brom, Crystal Palace, Brighton, West Ham, Fulham, that's not bad. And then at that point, maybe sell them after that. But yeah, it's a great run. Rudiger being benched recently, Rudiger and Mount being benched was a surprise. That's for sure. So maybe because they played Liverpool, they were like, oh, this is such an easy matchup. We're going to bench some of our players that have been nailed on. Like, this is just an easy win. But that's what you get when you play, like, these little mid-table teams. You can just sort of beat around. But no, they played Everton, and Everton have been kind of poor recently anyway. Liverpool, they actually both played against, I think. And, of course, that was an easy one as well. But, yeah, they easily beat both of the Liverpool teams. And now they have some decent fixtures. It just looks too good for them to ignore them, that's for sure. Reece James, I mean, he's kind of nailed on, right? He's played every game recently. Comes on as a sub a lot, though, or 2 games in the past 6 or 7. How's it going, Nuclear? Let's hear them benching headaches. Yeah, all these attackers are just so avoidable because of rotation. Werner still gets a lot of chances, but Jesus, doesn't matter. This will probably be the game that Areola saves a penalty. I've been waiting for it to happen for a while. But Rudiger or Bamford? Oh my gosh. Yeah, that Leeds home pitch is... It's every week. There's slips. It's terrible. 7 minutes left till deadline. So let me make sure that I'm not... Yeah, I'm going to leave my team out. It's fine. But yeah, that it's terrible. Like, I think... Well, it was rumored that that's why they didn't play Ings. Southampton didn't play Ings that week against Leeds at home because they were like, we don't want Danny Ings playing on this pitch, and then of course he gets hurt a couple weeks later. I mean, the hope would be right. I mean, if a Chelsea defender slips, maybe Bamford gets in. That's what we could always hope for. That's always what I'm hoping for with Bamford, but who knows, man. But Rudiger, it's a tough matchup. Which one to choose? I almost want to hope for you that Rudiger doesn't play at all. That way it just makes your decision for you. But I think he probably will. To be honest, I think I would play Rudiger over him. It's Chelsea have just been so good defensively. As much as my general rule is to play Bamford every week, I think you can't look at Chelsea's recent defensive statistics, which are incredible, by the way. Past 5 games, they've given up 1.8 expected goals and only conceded 1 goal in the past 5 games. I don't think there's any way you bench Rudiger. So, with that said, benching Bamford, it's a tough one, but I think you almost have to. Benching a Chelsea defender against Leeds, it's not something I would do, that's for sure. So, I would go Rudiger. Who should you start out of Target and Rudy? Got Martinez. Rudy. Oh, Rudiger. I was thinking of I don't know. That just didn't pop in my head. Target and Rudiger. Oh my gosh, those are both pretty good. Great fixtures, and I think you have to go Rudiger here again. Chelsea have been too good defensively, and Target's creative numbers have been down a little bit, so he doesn't really beat him on that front by as much anymore. Of course, Target as a first sub is a great first sub to have, but I think Rudiger still. Chelsea defenders are probably top priority this week, in my opinion, as far as defenders go. Who'd have been Traore or one of Diaz and Stones? I assume we're talking about Aston Villa Traore, in which case, let's take a look at Traore's statistics recently. Not the player I've been most interested in, but let's take a look, because I'm not so sure. Bertrand Traore, that's his name. So, recently, pretty decent numbers, actually, over the past 5. A higher XG per 90 minutes than Rafinha and Son. So, in comparison, he looks pretty decent. That's actually better than I expected. Against Newcastle, Traore, he should start. I'm trying to find the downside for him here. Diaz, Stones. I think either way you go here, I can't blame you. Man City have been conceding recently. I could see someone like Lookman getting on the counter maybe. I think I would go Traore. Yeah, Newcastle are bad. They're just bad. So, West Brom 0-0. What did they do before that? Newcastle lost. West Ham, Manchester United haven't been the most creative team. They scored 3 against them. I think I would lean towards Traore, to be honest. I feel like he has a little more upside. If I had, I would probably play Stones over Diaz if that's your other consideration. Just because Stones has, I don't know. I guess he has a clinical finish. I don't even want to say that sentence, but recently he scored goals when he got the chance. So I don't know. One of them may be benched either way, so it may not matter. Yeah, I think I would play Traore. Yeah, if you don't know, I would probably just play Bamford if you're really indecisive. That's probably back in the attacker is probably higher upside, that's for sure. So I can see backing Bamford can never go wrong with it. I don't have a strong opinion either way, so start Veltman or Rafinha. Rafinha all day. Actually, wait, no, it's Chelsea. It's Chelsea. How good has Southampton been attacking? That's the question here, because obviously it's a pretty decent fixture for Brighton. Let's look at expected goals over the past 6 games for Southampton. It's actually not bad. Chelsea have been so good defensively, though. I'm still going to say play Veltman. I just don't love the Leeds guys against Chelsea. If you have somebody, I don't really have a decent player to play over Bamford. I'm happy. I have to play him. I'm fine with playing Bamford, but if I had I don't know. It's a tough one. A Brighton defender versus a Leeds attacker is, I think I said Bamford earlier for this situation, but I'm really not sure. I think Veltman's a little safer. Chelsea have been so good defensively. I think you have something to hope for. I don't think a Leeds goal is that likely, to be honest, so I guess I've changed my mind a little bit. Which 2 players? DCL, Traore, and Digne. Calvert-Lewin's very likely to end up on this bench. I think I would play Traore. So I think it's between Digne and Calvert-Lewin as for who makes the bench. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin has higher upside. It's sort of a similar situation where my gut tells me Digne is a better option. I'm going to say it's 130. I'm going to say Digne. Konza or Veltman. I'm going to say Konza. Talked about that earlier a little bit. I simply trust Villa a little more than Brighton, but can't go too wrong with either one, I feel like. Not a strong opinion, but Konza has, I don't know. There's also a little bit of rotation risk with Veltman. With Brighton defenders, I'm always worried about it. So Konza for me. And it is 1:30. We should be having the deadline. Oh, yeah, deadline passed. So there is the deadline. Either way, those are one of those where I can't blame you. Like, some decisions I would just straight up disagree with. Like, let's say, I don't know, somebody wants to play James Ward-Prowse over anybody. I'd be like, no, bench James Ward-Prowse. But that's just me. So deadline has passed. If I had to make a prediction for all of these games, let's go ahead and go through them and see what is possible. Obviously, Villa should beat Newcastle. I feel like Newcastle haven't been great. Villa haven't been too creative, but I think they find a way to get a couple goals. I don't expect 3, but I say Villa win. Do I predict a clean sheet? I think so. I say Villa win 1-0. I wouldn't expect a lot. Okay, William, I'll check that out. Leeds and Chelsea, I'm going to say, I'm going to predict a clean sheet here against Chelsea. Too good defensively. I think Chelsea win 2-0. This has the potential to get ugly if Leeds really try to win the game back, where Chelsea could put on a lot. But that hasn't really been Chelsea's thing recently. So only 2-0. Crystal Palace and West Brom. Wow, that's kind of tough. I'm actually going to say 1-1. Crystal Palace probably should win, you could say, but West Brom have kind of been impressive recently with their new defensive mid. I could see them getting a goal for sure with their new striker as well. So 1-1. I think West Brom can get a point. Everton versus Burnley. I don't know. We don't know what Everton we're going to get. Again, I'm actually going to say 1-1 here. Not a fan of Everton and how they've looked recently anyway. Man City Fulham. I think the obvious prediction is 2-0, so I'll go with that. Fulham, not conceded 3 goals in a while. I think they'll concede 2 or 3, though. But it's still Man City. They're too good, so at least multiple goals for Man City is what I would expect. I'm going to predict no KDB goals. That's the furthest I'll go. I don't know who's going to score. Nobody knows. Southampton versus Brighton. I'm going to say Brighton win 2-1. Southampton defensively haven't looked amazing. But Brighton could keep a clean sheet. Just don't know. Leicester versus Sheffield United. Sheffield United been poor, obviously. Leicester haven't been great either. I think Ricardo Pereira is going to get an assist at some point soon. He's been getting in good positions. They put him at wingback. He gets forward into the box. He'll get a goal or assist at some point. Probably a goal, actually. I think he has a little more goal threat. But anyway, maybe not this game. I say Leicester probably win 1 or 2-0. Arsenal Spurs. This one's tough. I could see either Spurs killing them. I could see Arsenal winning, to be honest. But I'm gonna say 1-0 Spurs. Keep it simple. That would be kind of classic Mourinho big game kind of thing. But a Xhaka red card, Spurs domination, very likely. Man United versus West Ham. West Ham could easily win this. Let's look at where they are in the standings. I feel like this is kind of an important game. United 2nd, West Ham 5th. This is a big game for these guys. I think United actually do kind of well in a big game, to be honest. I think United. I think it's going to be a draw 1-1. That's a tough one. I don't think Lingard can play, can he? That would be cool to see if he could, but can't happen. I'm going to say, you know what? I say Man United win. I'm going to have to back them here. 2-1. And Liverpool versus Wolves, I will actually say, I'm going to say 2-2. Liverpool can't defend, but I like Liverpool's attack this week. So checking messages. It's the first time in a while I captain Salah. It doesn't happen. All the time. So Schmeichel coming out soon for Johnston. Wait, you said free hit next week? Okay, free hit next week, then wild card soon. So basically a dead end team, and this team won't have to go on for long term. Picture's kind of blurry. Maybe it'll change resolution soon. But we got Schmeichel, Diaz, Vestergaard, Rudiger, Cancelo, Salah, Bruno, Gundogan, Calvert-Lewin, Watkins, Kane. So his front line looks better than mine this week because he's got Watkins over Bamford. No KDB like me. 2 Man City defenders like me. So overall, I think I like it a little more than my team right now if I had to compare the two. But yeah, considering you don't have to worry about this long term, I'd say it's fine. Maybe KDB in the future is something you're looking at, but yeah, I see Schmeichel in this week could be nice, obviously, for short term. Maybe you don't want that much money in goalkeeper for that long, so that's why you said Johnston. But yeah, I like the team. We've got a likely clean sheet from Rudiger here, and the bench sort of picks itself. I feel like Armstrong, Rafinha, and Dallas. I mean, you could play Rafinha. I don't trust Armstrong, to be honest. But we both have the Calvert-Lewin issue where he's going to blank, and that's just a certainty. So, oh yeah, that's true. United injuries are stacking up, so maybe they don't win. But I still think they have enough depth where they'll cause them some issues. But yeah, I don't think as far as that's why I kept saying bench Shaw. I don't think West Ham is going to be an easy matchup at all for them. So that's why I kept saying bench to get likes of Wan-Bissaka and Shaw. In these tough dilemmas that some people are having. But yeah, this is a good team. Went with Kane over Salah. The one thing, I'm trying to think of things that could hurt you. I mean, you sort of got it well balanced. You got the Liverpool guy, the Man United guy, you got Gundogan, but there's no KDB and no extra Spurs. And comparing to my team, I suppose I have the 3-4-3 where I have the Son in here, probably a little more upside. But with Rudiger in there, can't say it's bad. So yeah. This is the team that I ended off with. Salah captain is going to be an interesting one. I did not expect to change my mind, but I did. Let's go to Nuclear Adams' team over on Twitter. And let's see what changes he made. I know he had some last-second benching decisions that he was trying to make. Nathan Bacon says he thinks he captained Martinez last second, but he doesn't know if it's saved. So, will be interesting to see. I mean, with the way Martinez, it's funny how goalkeepers have streaks of getting points and nobody even considers them for captaincy, which I completely understand why, but Martinez has been so good this season. So Nuclear's team for this week, no Kane, but we have Son, Cancelo, Diaz, Digne, Traore on the bench. I think I would have played Traore over probably Calvert-Lewin or maybe even Bamford, even though they have some decent fixtures. And I think I would have played Rudiger over Veltman, to be honest. I would have changed. And I certainly... Wait, let's see. I think I disagree with a lot, to be honest. I think I would have played... Okay, let's see. Let's see if this formation works. So, Martinez, Cancelo, Diaz, Rudiger. Martinez, Cancelo, Diaz, Rudiger. Maybe... Nah, I think you have to play the Man City guys. Martinez, Cancelo, Diaz, Rudiger. Son, Salah, Bruno, Watkins. Those are all in. Basically, I think I would have played... Because the thing is, I look at the bench and I'm like, those players are going to score points. Traore, Rudiger, and Gundogan. I think I would have played Gundogan over Bamford. So that's easy change. Then we're looking at 4-4-2. I think I would have played Rudiger over Veltman. So we're still looking at 4-4-2. And then we're looking at Traore over maybe Calvert-Lewin. I think I would have done that as well. So I think I would have just played Watkins by himself. And then took out Veltman. So basically Bamford, Calvert-Lewin, Veltman out for the whole bench. I think I would have ended up doing that. Maybe, but Gundogan for sure would have been in. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Ben Mee to Veltman was the transfer, so yeah. Well, you said you got to start chasing some points, but yeah, these are tough. These are tough decisions for sure. I don't know. I always feel like Gundogan drifts into the box and he can get a tap in, or get a drop to the top of the 18. But we just don't know. That Fulham game, it'll be interesting to see how well they defend. But yeah, these are tough decisions. I mean, I can't really blame you for playing the players you did. But Calvert-Lewin's been so poor recently. I think I definitely would have played Gundogan over him. Anyway, obviously it's good to have a lot of options, that's for sure. I don't really have any bench options that I'm very interested in, so I'd rather have a lot than not enough, that's for sure. But Rudiger at Chelsea have been so good defensively. We'll see what happens. Traore is an interesting one. I probably wouldn't be too interested in buying him, but if I had him against Newcastle, I don't know. Hopefully Calvert-Lewin can finally do something. Anyway, thanks for watching the deadline stream. Hopefully you guys have a good game week. And we'll see how Salah captaincy goes. And thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I will see you guys next time.